Hello, my name's Ajay and you're watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. Today we're very lucky to be joined by Lord Davidson. Lord Davidson has been a successful entrepreneur for more than 30 years. He's also been a campaigner and a fundraiser for the Bob Champion Cancer Charity and has worked with UNICEF. Currently, he's the director of Davidson Training, which is a government-funded program providing a national vocational qualification to young people in the workplace aged between 16 and 25. He joins us today to talk about taking young people off the pathway to destruction. Lord Davidson, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Well, before we get into the topic today, can you please share with us a defining moment from your life?
A defining moment from my life, yes. A defining moment from my life, one very defining moment, was when my nephew killed himself in a car. He committed suicide. It was drugs related. My nephew was a young man, early 20s, had a wife and a child, and there's been many young people gone the same way. This was a very defining moment in my life. It had all sorts of effects on me and on myself. And it made me really think and wonder about young people and what I could do to help them. And this was the start of my career with young people, and it's still going on, and I'm still working at it now. But that was the defining moment.
Lord Davidson, thank you for sharing about that. And obviously, today's topic being about how young people are heading on a path to self-destruction, and drugs is certainly one of those paths. Can you also share with us what you feel are the common mistakes in which young people find themselves on that path, not just with drugs, but what other elements are there out there?
Well, there are many elements. Education is one of the greatest things we have. Young people grow up in ignorance. Some of them cannot even read or write when they leave school. And so they spiral down a path. Either they don't want to work or they can't work. There's a lot of peer pressure here as well. They grow up on estates and other bad housing areas, and also some of them have bad parents who don't take control of them. And it's very hard to get them back onto the right path. But with education, if we can get them into a job, into work, and make them work for something so that they've got something. Some people call it a bit of paper, but it's not a piece of paper. This is a qualification, and a good qualification. And when these youngsters achieve this, and they're so happy to receive this award, and they've worked for it, believe me, they have to work for it. They have this, and this really, I find that this really helps them, it boosts them on. And also, it may take a couple of years to get these qualifications if they go for the different levels, and they can take more than one. And of course, the time's passing, the danger years, I call them the danger years. Certainly from 16 to 20 are the danger years for these people. They're easily influenced. God knows, I feel so sorry for them.
And what are the influences out there, the influences that are taking them on the path to self-destruction?
Well, you've got the drug culture. They find it exciting, you see. I suppose in my day it was smoking behind the school cycle shed or sneaking a drink underage. Today, drugs are a very serious, very serious problem. They go down this road. And not only drugs, there's crime as well. Some of them fall into crime and they enjoy it, and they, for some reason, they watch films and they get into this sort of crime circle that they don't get out. They go to court, they probably very well end up in prison. Well, there's no education in prison for them. This is a big thing that they need in prison, education. And then they come out of prison exactly the same as they went in. And then they're back on the spiral, back on the circle again. We need to take them out of this circle, take them out of this type of life. And the only way, you can't move them, you can't pick them up and move their home, unfortunately. Some of them are in very bad areas. You can't move them. You have to do something to them. You have to put it in their mind to change. And to gain these qualifications is such an exciting thing for them. They realise that they're people of worth. They are worth something, and they've got a certificate to prove it. And it may sound stupid to some people, but this really does help to change young people's lives. They're not all bad people or people who have wandered off the path that take these. Some of them are very nice, ordinary young people, and others are in this spiral, but it's the ones that need help that I'm interested in.
What do you think it is that's actually getting young people into prisons in the first place? Is it just poverty, or is it just a knock-on effect from being in drugs culture? What's actually getting people into this spiral and then getting them even further and further into trouble?
Well, that's not a simple question. There are many reasons, but young people are very easily influenced. And it's also to do with where they're brought up, the environment that they're brought up in, and this has especially the environment and the parenting, and they roam around some estates. They're young. In my day it was youth clubs. Today they meet on street corners and run around. Some of it may be even boredom or showing off to each other. You've got to remember these people are adolescents, they're not fully developed, so they're showing off in the best way that they can. So,
but do you think, like you mentioned, those adolescents, you know, in the street, or you know, kind of hanging around the local estate, people often say, well, let's build a youth club for them, or have a facility, a playground, a football pitch. But then those very places are vandalised or abused by those same young people. How can we really help them?
Yep, quite right. This will happen in all walks of life. You will get the vandals, and it wouldn't necessarily help. I can't see that it would. Some people, you could put a youth club there. I don't think many of them would go today. I think dance halls were a wonderful thing. People used to go to them. They would dance, meet the opposite sex. Then they're all in their youth, so this is the sort of thing that they want. They might be able to show off there rather than street corners and taking drugs and all the many other things, and then actually resorting to crime, because drugs will bring on crime. You have to have money to buy drugs, so that creates crime, and then these people learn off of slightly older people, and it starts this circle off, you know. And once they've been into trouble, it means nothing. It doesn't matter about a black mark anymore. They're into a culture, and of course, the more it's advertised in the papers, a youngster gets into trouble. His pictures in the paper, his photos in the paper. This makes this youngster famous now. He's somebody. You see, this is the thing. They're somebody. They want to be noticed, and that's how half of them start off doing these things. Not all of them, but a good deal of them.
Well, that's interesting because it fits in with what we're seeing in terms of television these days. Young people seeking fame, wanting to become pop stars, or getting their 15 minutes of fame on reality TV. Do you think that kind of culture where young people are being compelled not only to become famous but to wear the right kind of fashion, do you see that that's much more pervasive these days than it was perhaps in your generation? Oh,
absolutely. And this is all part of it, a small part. As I said, this isn't a simple explanation to getting around this. These are all small elements that build up to one thing. These people want to be noticed. They want to be someone special, and if it means showing off in front of your friends, taking drugs, or committing a crime so that everybody knows, these young people become infamous, and that's better than not being known. They all do this.
So it's better to go out and somehow kill someone, or to stab someone in order just to get yourself recognised. Do you think that's what's going on? People are acting in that way just to get recognition?
Not all of it, no. Some slightly, yeah. These people, they're talking about disrespect and things like this. They want to be somebody. And half of these, especially knife crimes now, the knife crimes are senseless. Young people's lives, someone's son, someone's daughter, are being killed by youngsters who their mind hasn't matured yet, so they don't really know what they're doing. They know they're doing wrong, and they certainly know they're stabbing someone, and they could die. But no, it's more than, it's not just one thing. It's a whole thing put together. It's the way children are brought up today. A lot of that good parenting is very important. Their environment where they grow up in, when and where they grow up, and the peer pressure from other, and also films and videos do influence influence a young mind, not a mature mind. We know that it's, but a young mind, and there's many facets of this that need looking into. But the great thing is giving, when these people are in that state when they're young, is giving them something, education, trying to make them proud of something that they're doing, other than doing something wrong, making them be recognised, making the people where they work recognise them and applaud them and hold up their certificate. They've earned this. This is a great thing. It helps. It definitely helps. And it's only a small part. There's much more that can be done. Much more. I've noticed I've watched people develop through this training, and it's a tiny, tiny bit of it we're doing. We need to do more, but we're definitely on the right road. It's definitely, the better you educate these people, the more aware they become, and this is the road that we're going down, and we're getting success in many areas.
Now, you obviously believe in the power of education and the significance of getting qualifications. However, what's guiding the work you're doing? I mean, approaching young people and guiding them in their lives, not just in terms of their careers, but what's the philosophy, if you like, behind the work that you're doing?
The work that I'm doing is to help people, to help young people. They need help, they need guidance. Even older people need guidance sometimes, but by the time they get into their late 20s and 30s, they should know. They know the difference between, it's a spiritual thing as well, really. I want to help people. I want to help these particular people who really need help, whether they know it or not. And this really is a spiritual thing for me. It's a great belief. I believe in life after death. I believe in an intelligent form we call God, I suppose. Call it what you like, but I believe in this very, very strongly. In fact, I'm positive of it. And this is the thing that's behind me, guiding me. And although the shock was my nephew, that was my defining moment. But I've gone on from there, and I won't say it's religious. I'm not really a religious person as such, but I know there's a greater force, intelligence behind it all, and I know that this is what I'm supposed to do. This is my thing in life, if you like, and I'm actually enjoying it.
So for you, education is not just about educating someone so they can have a successful career, but rather that they can have a successful life.
It is, exactly. It's the life. This education is only one part of life, and it helps them immensely. People who have a very good education generally go through life, they have their problems, but they normally sail through life because they've got this education. Education is the best thing you can ever give your children. You give it to them once, and it lasts them for the rest of their life. It's the one thing that they fall back on. And if you can even pass a small bit of education onto these youngsters, just to guide them. We're guiding them. That's what we're doing, guiding them. You can't make a person do anything. And there's certain stages in a person's life when they will change and when they will listen, and it varies. Some people won't change until they're in their mid-20s or 30s even.
Lord Davidson, you mentioned already several times parents and obviously the role that they can play. What advice would you give to a parent who's perhaps struggling with a child or a young teenager who's perhaps going off the tracks?
It's very hard. Good parenting starts from in the cradle, and it progresses all the way through the different stages of babyhood, childhood, adolescent. Youngsters, when their hormones are racing, when they get into this the awkward child syndrome, which is in their teens generally.
You mentioned between 16 and 20.
It is a very and even before that, sometimes even when they're 14 and younger, you've got to be patient. I think patience and common sense and reasonably firm. You must still have a firm hand with them. But by this time, they're starting to reason themselves. You really need to be a good parent. I can't think of any. You know, parents supposed to be experienced. You'll get the feel of your child, what they're up to. You know that they should be home by a certain time. I don't think good parenting is letting them stay out to all hours of the night. A good parent wants to know where their child is, wants to know what they are watching on the television or even on the internet. You know, have a look, see. Just keep an eye on them. Keep a firm guide them all the way. You know, they take notice of you if they love you. If you really love them, that's the best thing that you can do. Sometimes they will go off the rails, and it will be nothing to do with you. You may have given them good parenting, but if you try, there's an awful lot of bad parents out there, an awful lot, and I see it quite often in younger children and even in the older ones. Good parenting starts from the cradle. You know, this is one of our problems today. We need good parents, good teachers. I think teachers in school should have a bit more authority. They've lost the authority.
Can you just expand on that? Because authority in terms of what? Because parents are also losing authority in terms of being able to discipline. You said we need a firm hand with our children, and now, of course, it's. I read of one parent who was sent to jail because of slapping his own son, and teachers, as you said, are losing power now. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's very hard. In my day at school, when I was at school, you've got the cane, or you've got a blackboard rub around your head. It was quite brutal. I don't think it did us any harm. But I don't agree actually with smacking children for the sake of smacking. A small tap on the leg for a young child, probably once. I don't think that's too bad. It's if you do this, you'll get a smack, and if you don't, then it's fine. You probably only have to do that once when the child is very young. I'm not saying it's good for everybody, and I hate child brutality. I would never agree with that. But firmness, and you know, guidelines. This is the thing. Good guidelines, and stick to them. If a child misbehaves, you may not have to smack their legs. You may stop them from having a treat. There's all sorts of ways you can discipline your child. In school, unfortunately, the teachers have lost all power. They need to regain more power, and whether it's sending the child home, although this could be a wonderful thing for the child who doesn't like school, and they're missing out again. It's the child who's then missing out on the education.
Now, your company, Davidson Training, it's been going since 1997, I believe.
Yes.
Can you share with us some success stories of how you've taken young people off the path to self-destruction?
Well, there's been quite a few youngsters. They start with us. They're unruly. God knows how we talk them into it in the first place. It's trying to tell them, and we say, look, it's a really good idea. You're doing this job anyway, but you've got no qualifications. Now, if you had a qualification for this job, when you leave this job, you've got something to show, something to put in your CV, something to show your next employer that you are capable of doing this. Otherwise, you just say, well, I did work there, or I worked here. So that's how we start off. I've watched unruly people. I've watched all sorts of people, and gradually their character changes, very slowly, very, very slowly. In our hairdressing academy that we used to have, where we've just sold that part off, most of them were not academic at all. Most of them had no qualifications whatsoever. But they were nice people, they were nice young people, they were working for a pittance. absolutely a pittance. These people went home with nothing at the end of the week by the time they paid their fares to go to work. But they were getting trained in how to cut hair, colour hair, do all the things that, you know, it was a long course. There was probably a 2-year course. But I watched those. I watched boys so unruly with different coloured hair. They were so outrageous, the boys and girls. But they were fun. Not all bad, but they were so backward. Some of them could barely, well, lots of them couldn't write. And gradually, over a period of time, with the training and with teaching them, they could read and write. They became adept at their skill and they were enjoying life. And you could see that they were really, where they'd left other jobs, they'd had a job in and they'd left it the next week, gone to another one. We've had people come to us, do half a course and then go away and then come back a year later, and we've carried on. We always keep it open. We keep their work, their portfolio with all their work in it, because they come back. We have a really great success rate. We have one of the highest success rates in London of all colleges and schools. I think bar none. We're probably 80% success in getting our people through, because you've got to remember some leave their jobs and not for any other reason, that they're just fed up or they might get the sack, but we still we trace them, we follow them on, we try to get them another job if we can help them do that, and then we carry on their training. And I watch these people change. I see them. They're like a flower. They bloom, and this is the way. I'm convinced that this is part of the way. It's not the whole. It's not going to solve everything, but it's definitely part of the way. And it's a wonderful thing that successive governments, not just this government or the one before, successive governments have put money into this, and it's working. We're getting a skilled workforce, and especially in the deprived area, because that's where I'm interested in, we're bringing people up to par, even after they've left school, with no qualification, no education, and we're bringing them up to a level with some of their peers, and we're definitely making a difference.
Now you also mentioned earlier about the prison system.
Yes.
That's perhaps looking at how you can tackle the issue of those young people who've already actually reached the end of the road in some sense of self-destruction. They've actually ended up in prison, and now they're having to kind of work out the rest of their life, or not, because maybe they'll just go back and re-offend, as often is the case. What's your plan for dealing with that whole scenario?
This is a very serious problem. Once a person goes into prison or a young offenders institution, they then go through it. The education is minimal, if they get any at all. They then come out, total waste of time when they've been there how many years, 2 years, 6 months, I don't know how long, whatever. They come out, now they have this black mark. They try to get a job. They're supposed to tell the employer that they've been to prison. Most employers will not entertain them. Most of them won't. They need to be educated, because once they get on this is a spiral again. This is a circle. They get in, they go to prison, they come out, they can't get work. They go onto the dole, they sign on, they hang about with their mates all day long. Gradually, the drug thing probably comes into it. Even if it doesn't, they're hanging around. And there's groups of them. They've got nothing to do. And the devil does find work for idle hands. And so they get into mischief. That mischief may extend to shoplifting or even much more serious crime. And then they're back again. And it carries on. And these places they're schools for criminals. A young person put into one of these places, will be taught by the other inmates there of all the ruses, they'll be taught about the law, the ruses, all these things. They come out far worse very often than they ever went in. And some of them, for some of them, then they never ever want to get a job again, they never ever want to live a normal life, a percentage of them.
So prison itself, what you're saying, is actually becomes a school where they learn how to do even more,
absolutely,
whatever it is, and get into more trouble.
Yeah, and of course it then becomes exciting. You're with or they are with people who are like themselves, youngsters, boasting to each other and probably, and so it's doing nothing. It might be punishing them for a short while, but it's doing nothing. And you've got to remember, these people aren't serious, what I would call serious offenders. You have to have something. You have to have a stick somewhere along the line. You must have a threat somewhere. But if you can stop that, or if a magistrate or a judge could make an order for them to attend an education centre or something for so long until they've got a qualification, I think at least that's something there. They're on a path. And also they can work, you see. They don't have to be just going to a college. They can go to work and take these things. They should be obligatory, I think. But there's many other things. This is only one thing. There are the people who will never listen, and they will go on through life and they will have to find out themselves. But if you can get them young enough, or at the right stage, when they're ready at this stage, and just get them to do something like this, believe me, time passes, and before they know, they've been in a job, one that they've probably never held down before. They've been in a job 6 months, and then a year, and then 2 years, and you think, God, you know, this is a person who came to this work and said they probably wouldn't last a month, and I've talked to them myself, and they said, well, probably won't last here a month, and they're enjoying it, and then they get promotion, and then they become, you know, we work in banks, building societies, phone shops, and I watch them, some of them become managers, and I feel very proud. It's not all to do with me, it's to do with the person there, but they become people, responsible people, and that part's left behind, and it's catching them at this stage. Between the age of 16 and 25 is a good age to catch them.
So it's about giving young people more responsibility?
Partly, it's giving people they're responsible for themselves, to take pride in themselves, to take this boasting, where they're boasting of all the bad things they can do. They boast about these things. I have an MVQ. The managers of these shops and the staff, they stand round and they have a presentation and they clap. These people are made special for that day, something they've worked for. And on this day of the presentation, they're presented with this qualification that they have earned. And they generally go on to do another and another. Not always, but mostly, because they're so proud. Now they have worth. They have self-worth. They're worth something, and they're worth this. They can come from a council estate on Moss Side, or one of the worst areas that you can think of. But these people are going somewhere. They've got something, and it's giving them back their pride and their self-worth. They're not just a reject from school who's left school early with no qualifications. Yeah, they were, but now they have something. A little bit later, but it doesn't matter. This is what's important to these youngsters. I can tell you that now.
Lord Davidson, thank you so much for joining us on The Defining Moment.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
You've been watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. If you'd like to see more of our shows, we're on the web at www.definingmoment.eu. Thank you for watching, and we wish you all the best.